Good evening, everybody. How are y'all doing? We are going to talk tonight. We've got another exciting Q&A show. Jeff and I, we've been looking and getting tons and tons of questions, and you guys have given us all kinds of stuff to talk about. So we are going to break off, get into it, and see what happens. All the information discussed in this interview.
Live questions.
Live questions would be great. I will say that I am seeing some comments. We've got Kelly's in here. Let's see. Dwayne joined us. Daniel's here. So we got a couple people watching, checking everything out. That's awesome. So this time of year, a lot of things come up. A lot of people are having predator problems. Oh, this in the back, this picture, I actually, yesterday, I went and did a couple of farm visits with some friends of mine. And one of the places we went, absolutely a beautiful place. And so y'all know me. When I'm around birds in a beautiful place, I had to snap a picture. And I was like, I'm going to stick that in the background. And I see Zach in here. Good afternoon, Zach. I had to put this picture out, though. This guy, man, he's got the person that has these is a young guy, and he is doing a lot of stuff, and he's doing it right. So I was very happy to meet him and see him in person, and it was a nice visit. So, yep. This time of year, one of the first things that I wanted to talk about is raccoons. I've seen so many people talking about ways to keep raccoons away from their birds. Raccoons and hawks, right, Jeff?
Yep. The hawks are pretty easy, but the raccoons, not so much. This time of the year, they're hungry. They're foraging for winter. They're getting ready. Yep.
So one of the places that we visited, I saw probably about a 1 foot by 1 foot cage, about 12, 13 feet up in the air. And it had a little pullet in it. And I was like, what in the crap? Never thought, my mind, I never thought about doing something like that for a hawk. Up on top of that cage, that pullet was perfectly safe. Up on top of that cage was a couple of traps that, due to unforeseen circumstances, that bird would get a lot more than they bargained for when they come down for that pullet. So that was a very, very good idea. Daniel says a good yard dog keeps them away. That is true. Livestock guardian dogs are well worth their weight and the amount of feed that they eat's weight, because some of them Great Pyrenees, they can put down a lot of feed. But the question that I see a lot is for people that trap. Jeff, what are some recommendations that you have to put inside of people's traps?
So I have a really good friend of mine here. He's actually a professional trapper. He gets paid to be a nuisance trapper. Like, he goes around, people pay him big bucks to go get rid of things like raccoons, possums, whatever. And his dad is the local fur buyer and trapping supply guy. So I've talked to these guys numerous times, and they actually get a concentrated fish oil, right? And that's really all they need for a raccoon. That is their preferred bait, right? So they're doing the new raccoon trap is a leg hold, and you actually push it down in the ground, and the hole is small enough that you're not going to get a dog or something else by mistake. So, and then they just put a few drops of that fish oil down in that hole, and the raccoon reaches down in the hole and you got him. And it's a leg hold trap. It doesn't kill him, but he actually buys in, really expensive fish oil, and that is his preferred raccoon bait. Now, there's lots of things that work. Look, when I was a kid and I trapped, I used things like sardine, peanut butter, all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that fish oil comes in a small bottle, kind of like your 50 milliliter jitter juice bottle, and you're putting like 3 or 4 drops down the hole once a week, right? Just to keep it freshened up. And he swears by it. He catches a lot of raccoon. Now, that's in Pennsylvania. What works in Alabama? I don't know.
I'll tell you, last year I stopped counting at around 35. They call them dog-proof coon traps because my wife has her favorite ankle biter. She's had this dog for 11 years, and that's her biggest concern when I started talking about trapping these coons to get rid of them. And so I found this trap, and I was like, well, this little mutt ain't tall enough to put your paw in it, so it'd be all right. And I get this, and, man, I tried all kinds of stuff. They make really fancy this and that, and they swear by all of it. But what I found worked is really, really good dry cat food. Like, the little pieces that some people want to use it in their chicken feed, those little pieces. But when you open the bag, they smell. They smell pretty good, actually. So I'll take those and I'll put a few of them in the trap. I'll put a few of them around it. And then I'll take some oil, put a couple drops out. I'll set 3 or 4 of those a night. And there have been times that I have had every single one of them full the next morning when I go out there, just off of some fish oil and some cat food. John Anthony Marks, he says sardines is the best he's ever used. Man, that fish oil in them things is strong, and they can smell it probably from a mile away, and they love it. So, fish oil,
the
good enough for the
fish
professionals.
oil, the better, so.
Good enough for the professionals in Pennsylvania and the rednecks in Alabama. Noah uses sardines and oil too. Now, I don't know that I've ever seen vanilla cat food.
Well, but you take vanilla and no, you just start with vanilla. But if you put a few drops of, or you start with cat food.
Yeah.
But if you put a couple drops of vanilla extract, I never thought about it, but Warren's right. I mean, that's
but I mean, right? Vanilla smells good. And if you got that pure vanilla extract, it's strong. So that works.
That's worth a try. So, for sure.
Yep, definitely. Let's see here. Dwayne says mirrors hanging from trees will project light and movement on the ground, and hawks don't understand the movement. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, if you put like glittery stuff that moves hanging in the tree, when it reflects, right? The hawks and the owls don't really understand what's going on there. So
I've seen people with the little pinwheel things like you played with when you were a kid that they roll around, and those things reflect the light really well too. So that sounds good.
Now, when I was out traveling, I went through Oregon, and a guy out there, Jesse Thistle, right? Thistle Family Farms. But Jesse, I had never thought of this before, but Jesse from Amazon ordered an $80 coyote decoy. Okay. Styrofoam, decoy. And he puts it out there in his chicken yard, and every 3 or 4 days he moves it to another spot. Now, if your yard's really big, you put a couple of them out there, but the hawks and the owls will not. They will not take a chance on that. And even the smaller predators like possum, And raccoon, as long as you religiously move them every 3 or 4 days, right?
Yep.
You don't have to feed that sucker, man. You can save yourself a lot of dog food. And he's got over 1,000 birds, and he was losing 3 or 4 a week, and he went down to losing like 1 a month. Okay, so it drastically made a huge difference.
So I talked to some pastured poultry people, and they thousands of birds out to pasture all the time, and they have, I think it's night eyes, I think is what it's called, and they sell those, and they're solar powered, and the people that have recommended those to me, they have all said that if you just stick them out, it's not going to work. You've got to follow the directions, because those people have it to a T, down to a science. They'll tell you to mount it this high off the ground, and then they want you to put some up higher too. And, the one that's on the ground is supposed to mimic a predator walking around the yard, and they tell you to move it every couple of days. So, that works, because, other predators will see those red eyes at night, and they don't know what it is. They don't want to take a chance on it being a 125-pound Great Pyrenees or a 3-ounce, set of night eyes. So
I know I don't want to meet up with 100. I don't want to meet up with a Great Pyrenees after dark either in a strange yard. That's not going to go well. The
friends that I have that have them, like, I could see how somebody could be very intimidated by one of them dogs. They're huge. Noah says that they sell wacky inflatable tube men that deter hawks. That makes sense too. There's all kinds of stuff you can get for that. Kelly uses motion detector lights. Yeah, so I have seen they use these a lot for fireworks stands. They got a fan at the bottom, and it's like a tube sock, and it'll have arms that wave around. I have actually seen smaller versions of those that are only like 8 to 10 feet tall that people use to deter aerial predators.
I think it would work. So,
hey, Douglas says good morning. Good morning, Douglas. Another question, Jeff, that I have seen several times is about mud fever. People want somebody to explain what mud fever is and what it does to a chicken, and what can they do to help?
They don't really want the answer to this, Kerry. I'm just going to be honest with you, but a
lot of people don't like the truth, man. They don't like it.
I know it. I know it. So
it's our
mud
job.
fever is simple. Mud fever is pretty simple, right? So the chicken has a bellyache because of something it ate. Okay, so the inside is burning up, right? It's like you ate a whole jar full of jalapenos, So
I could do that.
Yeah. Okay. So, its intestinal tract or its gut or something is pretty tore up in there, and so mud, particularly clay, will soothe that, right? And it calms that down. So it's like calming down an ulcer. And that's why the bird will do that. It'll pick it up, put it in its water, and then as it drinks its water, it soothes its digestive tract. So it's an instinctual thing that the bird knows how to do, believe it or not, right? It ain't just being stupid. So, honestly, I hate to say it, but the guys that are feeding diets that are really, really heavy in corn and don't have a good diversified grain mix, right? Where they're using some oats, some barley, some Milo, whatever. When I see some of these feed pictures that looks like it's 60 or 70% corn with a little bit of protein pellet in it, I know that guy's going to have mud fever. There ain't no doubt in my mind. So you got to ease up on that corn. I know they eat it like candy. I get it. But it doesn't mean it's good for them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean,
So that's
we
one of
like
the
candy
things.
too, but it ain't good for us.
Yeah. The other thing is if you run into some corn sometime, or you run into any grain where the mycotoxins might be a little on the high side, and you can't see it or smell it, guys. So, but if the mycotoxins are run a little bit high, that'll cause it as well. Anything that causes digestive upset or ulcer or burning, that bird's going to want to make some mud fever.
Now would that be
particularly,
something that, like, if you could catch it, like if you go out and you pay attention to your birds every day, every 2 days, and you handle them a lot, and you caught it, would that be something where you could give them some raw milk, or at least some vitamin D milk, and help soothe their stomach and work on the gut health, or is it a little late for
right?
that?
No, no. I mean, if you caught it on the first day or so, it works. And then, Kenny has a great question. And look, I'm going to tell you, if you back off on that corn a little bit and diversify your grains, whether you're using wheat, barley, oats, something, your chances of mud fever are going to be a lot lower, right? There's not a great prevention to it other than a well-balanced diet. And even then, if you run against the wrong circumstances, you could still have it. You could still, it might happen. So, the product I've been recommending to guys when they call in about mud fever is actually a clay, a really clean food grade clay. It's called Redmond clay. You can look it up. You can order off of Amazon. Right? It's good stuff. You take a tablespoon of dry Redmond clay, you mix it up, you put it in a gallon jug, and then fill that up with water, shake it up really good, and serve, and serve it for 3 or 4 days, and you're in good shape again.
So you take the Redmond clay and mix it in with the water and let them drink that water.
Right. But I don't mix it in their cup. I mix it in a gallon jug ahead of time. Right. And then I fill the cup. Okay. So, all right. And look, I keep the stuff here at my house. So if I feel like I got a little acid indigestion going on, I'll take a teaspoon, mix it in 16-ounce glass of water, drink that. I'm good. Okay. So I can't explain to you why it works or what it does, but the use of what is called ancient clays, or clays from, clay has been used as a healing substance, both internally and externally, for thousands of years. Okay.
Right.
Thousands of years.
So let me ask this. If I have one bird that's got mud fever, would it be, if I'm mixing up a gallon or a 2.5 gallon jug, whatever I've got handy, if I'm mixing that up, would it be a good idea to feed the ones around him, or water the ones around him that with the same stuff, or just wait until they show symptoms?
Wait until they show symptoms. But so sometimes, on a bigger yard, it's only like 2 or 3 birds, maybe 4. On a smaller yard, it seems to be, this cock or stag. Rarely do I see it in a hen. It seems to be much more, the rooster side. But and it seems to bounce around. Like this one will have it, or this one will have it, and so I just mix it as you need it. Serve it for 3 to 5 days, and you should be in good shape again.
Well, you probably see that a lot more on the roosters, because a lot of folks want to put that whole corn in with the pellets. And the hens, they're just tossing them some pellets and letting them get some worms. Jessica has a good question. Can you use charcoal to help with upsets like that?
You can. Now, I use charcoal more when I feel like the bird has been poisoned by something, but the charcoal will do the same as the clay. The charcoal is much more active. And so, I use the charcoal if I feel like the bird's eaten something toxic, right? Ate the wrong weed, ate some old dead carcass that's been laying around for 2 weeks, something like that. Then I'll go more for the charcoal. If I feel like I need to fix it fast, like I need to fix it in 24 hours or less, that's where the charcoal comes in handy. So I'm much more of a fan. So if I feel like the bird's poisoned or any animal, human, whatever,
Right.
I'm going for the charcoal. If I feel like something's going to die in the next 24 hours, then I'm going for the charcoal. But usually for a plain basic mud fever, then the clay works. The clay works good. But
all right,
I'd tell everybody listening or anybody who listens to this, get yourself, a can, 1-2 pound can of activated charcoal from the pharmacy or wherever you can get it. It doesn't go bad. Keep it airtight and keep it in your medicine cabinet because you never know. It's good insurance, right? You never know when you're going to need it. And trying to find it when you got to have it is hard. It don't happen easy.
Yeah, I've noticed that about a lot of stuff. My wife's like, "Why do you have all this crap?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, I hope I never have to use it, right. But if I do, it's there." Let's see. Let's look right here. All right, that takes care of the comment section. Here's another one. I actually seen this question pop up in 2 different groups that I'm in the last couple of days. People have, and I don't know if it's just this time of year or what the deal is, but they got roosters that lose weight. Now, well, I should say these are stags because they still have their comb, but their comb is still bright red, looks good, but the rooster is significantly losing weight. Any ideas on what that could be or anything like that?
Be odd coming out of August and September, I can see them cycling off some body fat and getting ready, but and then they're going to put it back on for winter just because of the shorter days.
Right.
I'd be really curious on the age, and I know, because you got it off of some groups, you're not going to get that, but stags actually, depending on when they were hatched, like if they were hatched really early, if they're hitting that 8-9 month stage, they actually are going to go through something like a molt, and they're going to, but they don't drop every feather and they don't look as sick as the older birds do. They still, they have a molt cycle. So if they were hatched early, like January, February, I think they're actually just doing like a half molt, getting ready for winter because that's what their body instincts, wanting them to do.
So a lot of people know I'm a huge fan of hatching in the wintertime. It's easier to keep a bird warm than it is to keep them from getting too hot. And so, I'll have them in the barn where I can control the wind and all that good stuff. And so I'll have some hatch out late November at the earliest, December, January. And I had that happen, the last month or so where they're getting smaller. Some of their feathers look like maybe they stuck their finger in a light socket, but their combs, they're still good and red. And there's people that have dubbed any time of the year. I really like doing it when it's cold because in the South where it's hot and humid 11 months out of the year, I like to do it when it's cold and less humid because I don't want any kind of nasty infections setting up or anything like that. So, I had something similar happen. So you think, in your opinion, normal circumstances, if they're feeding the bird right, it's just a molt. They're going through it.
It has to be, because if the comb is staying good, like if the eyes are still clear and bright, like the bird's healthy, and the combs and the wattles are still, that really nice cherry red, your circulation's going good. As long as the bird hasn't quit eating or something like that, then they have to be going through some sort of a molt, right? There's not, because look, if they had intestinal issues like enteritis, coccidiosis, parasites, anything like that, okay, they lose that sharpness in the eye and they lose the color in their comb. Okay, they're going to do that, right? Because they're going to be running a little bit anemic. They're not going to have a good appetite. So, if it was an illness related, you're going to see other symptoms. And if everything else looks good and they're just shedding off a couple ounces, that's probably stored fat and it's not a bad thing. But
Right.
I'd bet you they're going through a minor molt.
Makes sense. This time of year, I also see a lot of people talking about apple cider vinegar, pros, cons, good, bad. They're in the summertime. Some people feed it or water it, put it in their water year round. Some people say that if you do it in the summertime, you're going to kill the chickens, all that good kind of stuff. Tell us the Jeff Maddox information on apple cider vinegar.
I really want to see that data where it supposedly causes acidosis and can kill a chicken, because I think them people are smoking some really bad shit. So
I mean, I've asked people for their proof. Like, where's the research, or is this just what you've heard? And I've gotten blocked by quite a few people.
Yeah, I don't know. It don't look. I'm a fan of apple cider vinegar actually year round, but I like to increase it during the hotter months. I believe. Okay, now listen. I believe, I don't have any proof that it helps with heat stress. Okay, so when you get to your hotter months like June through September, I for sure feel like I feel for sure that apple cider vinegar is a plus for you, but it also aids in digestion. It helps the bird get more out of what they're eating. So
Yep.
I'm fine with it going in the water at 1 ounce per gallon, year round. You're not going to hurt anything. And in the heat of summer, I'd go as high as 2. And if I lived in Alabama, I'd probably go 3 ounces in a gallon, through the hottest part, July, August, for sure. So,
and so
I have never seen anything but positives from feeding apple cider vinegar. Never. I have never. Right.
and like
anything.
I know that there's companies out there that sell that stuff in the 55-gallon drum. And I know that because I bought one. That's how I use it. But I know commercial houses use the 55-gallon drums, toss a hose over in it, and inject it into their water lines. Yep. And if they're doing that in a commercial house where the chicken, they don't, they're not on a 5-foot tie cord. They're lucky to not bounce and touch the one next to them. They're in there pretty tight. So
yeah, but they're also
they have
in a
a lot
nice
of
barn.
airflow. They're in a nice barn. Lots of
airflow. Got misters. They got airflow. Right, they're
all
fed
that
6
good stuff
times a day. Right, and they still doing it.
They're doing it 365 days. Every day that bird's getting apple cider vinegar. Well, they usually only live like 7-8 weeks, but it works.
They see about a 7 to 10% increase in feed efficiency. So, like a Pilgrim's Pride or a Tyson barn or something like that, right? It pays for itself. Now, there's a reason this is happening. They also know there's like some really outstanding information and studies that shows that a chicken's digestive tract should be mildly acidic, right? So you want it below 6, 7. You want it down around 6 pH, and the bird is healthier at that pH in its digestive tract. Right? You don't want a high pH,
right?
So the bird lives a better life. Yeah, and
that's
in just a small way, right? It helps with that. Not huge, but just that little bit of acidity, helps that bird out.
You talk about making their feed 6 to 8% more efficient on their feed conversion. In every chicken group, people are always looking for ways to save money on feed. Well, give them some apple cider vinegar, and they'll be more efficient with their feed, and they'll do better with it. Feed them better, and they'll eat less.
Yep.
So, yep.
There ain't no doubt about it.
Let's see.
There's a bunch of questions coming in.
One of the things that I have seen is, a lot of people think, well, that stuff's $8-9 a gallon. Well, you can actually make it. Dwayne showed me how he makes his, and he uses one of those gallon-sized pickle jars, and he puts a bunch of apples in it, fills it up with water to the top of the apples, puts some sugar in there, takes a coffee filter, puts it over the top, puts some rubber bands on it. And he said in the summertime, he puts it out in his cock house because it's going to smell when it's fermenting. In the wintertime, I mean, I would stick it in my kid's closet, not my closet, because I don't. My wife might not be happy with my smelling funny, but bring it inside, put it somewhere dark where it can get warm and go through its process. It's easy to make, and that way you'll have the mother with it, and so you'll have apple cider vinegar with the mother, and then you take those apples and feed them to your chickens. They'll love that. Let's see. Here's a good question. What do you put on the rooster after you dub them? Any suggestions, Jeff? Because people's not going to like mine.
Well, people ain't going to like my answer either. But, okay, two things. One, and somebody's going to get pissed off, and that's too bad. But you only dub, I don't care what animal it is. Like you take the horns off of cattle and you dub a rooster. Anytime you're working on the head and it's going to bleed, you do it on a new moon. Okay. You wait till there's no moon and you'll have a lot less blood. And if you do it right dead center on a new moon, the healing process, and I don't understand this. Okay. Don't ask me the science on it.
We ain't doctors.
But as that moon gradually is increasing just after that new moon, it actually heals faster. Okay? Mm-hmm. I ain't got the first damn clue why. I'm just telling you it works. Okay. But for sure, for hundreds of years, and as long as the Farmer's Almanac's been out there, you take horns off of cattle and you dub a chicken on a new moon. Okay. Always. Yep. Always. Okay. So
what do you put on it?
So I was talking about that Redmond clay. It's an excellent clotting. It's an excellent clotter. So you just dust a little bit of that on the wound. It protects it. It'll scab it over really quick, and it keeps the flies off of it. And you're going to get the quickest healing out of just dusting a little bit of that Redmond conditioner or dabbing a little bit on that open wound.
So I use the Redmond, that fine powder. I use that, and I'll also have a wash rag that's soaked in rubbing alcohol. And a dab of rubbing alcohol. I wouldn't want you
putting alcohol on my open wound, but yeah.
I use it on mine, and yes, it hurts a little bit, but I have found that it heals significantly faster. So that's what I do. There you go, Zach. Hope that answers your question. Douglas says it's always summertime in the Philippines. Yeah.
Too damn hot for me.
Yeah. Daniel says, can we talk probiotics? What kind of questions do you have about probiotics? What kind of probiotics would you feed a chicken, Jeff?
Well, so, everything that we make, right, it has probiotics in it. So, like, it's got Lactobacillus acidophilus, it's got Bacillus subtilis, it's got Lactobacillus plantarum, right? And it's a 5-way blend. And then it's got 2 yeast culture strains in it. And this whole thing about probiotics has got blown out of proportion and basically turned into a witch hunt. I think people are getting way too carried away with the thought about probiotics. Yes, probiotics are beneficial. There ain't no doubt about it, right? I take them, you take them, right? And they're good. But as far as which strain is the best and all that, I think there's only 5 probiotic companies out there that supply everybody. Okay, everybody. Okay, and Dannon, the yogurt people own, I think, 2 of them, and they're all pretty much supplying just about the same strain. For tag dressing purposes, they'll change the name and they'll call them whatever, right? And but it's all pretty much going to fall back to Streptococcus faecium, Enterococcus faecium. It's going to be your Lactobacillus acidophilus, plantarum, and Bacillus subtilis. Those are your core group of probiotics. And look, a good feed or a good supplement already has the probiotic in it. Okay, so it's not, I really worry about guys trying to supplement it later through water or through feed or something like that. It should already be in there, right? You want it in there constantly, all the time. If you need, a good friend of mine in Arkansas, he makes homemade sauerkraut, right? All you do is you just shred up some cabbage. You put it in you can get, like you said, the 1 gallon mason jar. You put a layer of cabbage in there, you salt it, put a layer of cabbage, you salt it, put a layer of cabbage, you salt it, right? And you put the lid on very loosely, or you cover it with a clean cloth, and you just let it sit on the counter and do its thing, right? And that makes awesome lactobacillus type. And you can feed just a small amount of sauerkraut to your chickens. They love it, right? They tear into that like, they'd eat that all day long.
So Alan says back in the day, they put flour on their head. They, like I said, make like a paste.
Sure.
Put that on their head, and that helps clot real good.
You can use it as a powder. Cornstarch, flour, anything dry and powdery is going to do the job. But
right.
I'm still going to get things like flies wanting to come there, or mosquitoes or something.
That's why I like to do it when it's cool outside.
Yeah, and they really do. They don't like the Redmond clay. So going deeper into the science, right? So, this is going to blow people's minds, but clay particles have a negative charge, right? Their molecule is negatively charged. Insects do not like negatively charged dust or particles or anything like that. So they can sense it, they can feel it, and they're not happy there. So they're moving on.
And I'm going to throw a shameless plug out there for the SCGBA. They have a calendar, and on that calendar, it's got their show dates, but it also has the dubbing dates on that calendar that goes in with the moon cycle. That was something I think Dwayne did that new this year. He went and put all those in there when he was putting together the pictures of the birds and all that good stuff. So, yeah. Let's see. Zach, cornstarch works good too. Scroll through these questions real quick. Make sure we don't miss any. Here's a good one. Do you recommend doing ACV and garlic together in the water, or should they be done separately?
They can be used together. There's no negative effect if you need the garlic. I don't know, if you're just doing the 24-hour soak on the garlic, or if you're doing a garlic tincture. Now, things like garlic tincture, here's the thing. You feed garlic nonstop always. I can't use it now as a medical treatment. So if you have an infection or, something serious going on with the birds, their system has gotten to a tolerance level of the garlic where it's no longer a medical treatment. That's the only reason I don't recommend garlic all the time, every day. I do recommend the ACV every day, nonstop, forever and ever. right? But I like to use the garlic as a medical treatment when I can. So it's a really good first line, antibiotic replacement. Works great.
Let's see, we've got a question here about using stinging nettles or pumpkin seeds or Damascus, or however you say that,
Diatomaceous earth. Yeah.
diatomaceous earth as
Diatomaceous
a
earth.
deworm. I'm going to say, me
So,
personally, I don't like DE.
well, I do. There's a time and a place for it.
Well, okay,
There is a
I'll
time
give
and
you
a
that.
place
There's
for
a time and a place.
Okay. So I don't necessarily use it dry. Pumpkin seeds are a dewormer, but it just takes so long to get the job done. And now with the more modern hybrids of pumpkins out there, I'm not sure that they have the tannin levels that they need to repel the parasites. The homemade mix that I use is equal parts of cayenne powder, cayenne hot pepper powder, garlic. I prefer fresh ground, and diatomaceous earth. And I mix that together, kind of make it as a thick paste or something like that, and put it on top of their feed. I'll run that for a week, and I've got scientific studies that show that reduces parasites. Okay, does it work as good as Ivermectin or some of the other stuff out there? Probably not. But we also know that the commercial chemical wormers are gradually losing their effectiveness, and parasites are becoming immune to it. And we're actually killing more earthworms than we are digestive tract worms, like roundworms, so on. There's a time and a place for everything, right? You can manage it with simple stuff like cayenne, garlic, and diatomaceous earth, or pumpkin seeds. And then there's a time when you got to pull the trigger on something like an ivermectin or a safeguard or whatever, right? So, it's all part of the toolbox. Okay,
Right.
It's not all or nothing. It shouldn't always be this, and it shouldn't always be this. We know that parasites can build up a resistance to treatments, so it's best if you have a rotation, right?
And I mean, you can't just find pumpkin seeds any time of the year.
They're fall of the year kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And,
which I will say
acorns.
this: my chickens love pumpkins. I like you said, with the way they're hybridizing them, I don't know if they still have everything they need in them to trust them by themselves. But I know somebody that has a pumpkin patch, and every year on November 1st, I go to his farm and I load up on pumpkins. And what I do is I'll bring them back, I'll cut them up, sprinkle them with pepper flakes, and I give them to the chickens. Now, is it cleaning all the worms out, which mine don't have them to amount to anything? Or is it because if I do that? I don't know. It's just like in the summertime, I've got people that sell watermelons, and when they have watermelons that aren't selling as fast as they need them to, I'll go scoop those up. My chickens love them. So it's definitely not going to hurt.
If your buddy has the old-fashioned kind of pumpkins and something that's a little bit more like a pie pumpkin, the tannin levels are going to be higher in that, right? So you're helping reduce the parasite loading in the bird. And you don't want, so if you did a fecal test on your chicken, right, you take a sample of the shit and you go to the vet or wherever, and you get it checked for parasites or parasite eggs, right? You don't want 0. Okay, 0 is bad.
Yeah.
Okay? You actually want like 40 to 60 eggs per gram, right around 40 eggs per gram of chicken manure, 1 gram of chicken manure, right? So you're talking about a piece of chicken manure about, I don't know, not a ½ inch long, more than a quarter, not a half, probably about 3/8 of an inch of chicken crap is a gram.
In redneck and these, I'm going to say thumbnail size.
Okay. There should be 40 or 50 parasite eggs in that, right? They're part of the whole picture. And people don't think that. They think 0 is better, right? None is better. And truthfully, it's not, because then the bird never gets an immune system to parasites.
That's why I give them the raw milk when they're chicks to start their gut working.
Yeah. And if I'm feeding them grit, and I'm making sure that I'm feeding them some whole oats with the hull on it, not groats, whole oats. Right. I feel like I'm doing a really good job of managing it. And then through things like, the cayenne, the DE, the pumpkin seeds, we're also helping to manage it. So it all works together. Right.
So Michael Dwayne pops a question out that says that he hasn't put it to the test, but he thinks giving vitamin K the day before will help with blood just a little more. Will it work a little more? And I think this is going back to the dubbing and using that in their system to help with the clotting. But I personally don't know that the day before is long enough. Is that long enough before for their body to process it?
I would think 2, but most of your vitamin K is K3. And it has to get, the K3 has to get to the small intestinal tract and start being broken down before it can turn it into vitamin K2, which is what is used for blood clotting. Okay?
Right.
So a day probably isn't enough, maybe 2, or find a feed that has vitamin K in it all the time at the right levels. And I don't think extra vitamin K is I don't know that extra vitamin K is going to help you out a whole lot. So
I was going to say, if you feed them Rapido every day, they'll have enough in their system.
Yeah. Don't overfeed it. They might have too much.
Yeah. Don't overfeed it. That's for sure. Dwayne says that calendar is $22, including shipping. So they got that flat rate locked in. And y'all can send me a message and I can link you up with him, or you can find him on Facebook. How often should copper sulfate be given per year?
I'm just going to use it on an as needed basis. So if I think that, all right, so if it was my birds, I'd probably run copper sulfate for 3 or 4 days in the spring of the year, like when your grass starts growing. Okay, so your parasite activity is at its highest level when the soil temperature is right around 65 to 70 degrees. Okay, because once your soil temperature gets really high, once you get above 85, parasites aren't real happy. And they're not as functional or mobile. And once you get below 60 degrees, again, the parasites are not real mobile. They're not easy to be picked up. So between 60, 75 degrees, I think I'd run a course of copper sulfate in the water for a few days just to bring things back to a balance. Okay. Don't strip everything out. Don't get crazy with it. Quarter teaspoon per 5 gallons, probably enough per gallon of drinking water. But again, it's a tool in the toolbox.
Now I'm going to ask this question
based on a calendar. All right.
Does copper sulfate come from copper, or is that name just there?
No, it's really copper. That's where that blue color comes from.
So what I do personally is you can find 3/4 inch copper fittings anywhere. I bought mine off of Amazon because the 10-pack was cheaper off Amazon than it was at Lowe's, and I don't have a mom and pop hardware store near me, or I'd buy them from them because I like to support local. But I use 5-gallon buckets to feed my bell waters and my cup systems with water. And I've got 4 3/4 inch fittings in that. And I've seen people also just take and cut like 6-inch sections of copper pipe and throw that in their waters. And since I think you told me that you gave me that idea probably 2 years ago now. I don't have to clean my buckets anymore. Like I don't empty them out. I don't clean them because I don't have that crap growing. So I think to answer Dwayne's question, if you're going to feed it and mix it like what you talked about originally, do it like that. If it's going to be, it depends on the dosage, because if you're doing like what I do, it's coming in 24/7 every time they drink water.
Yeah. So to add to that, Carrie, this is what I've learned since I initially told you that a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
If guys don't test their water, we don't know. But if the well water or the city water or whatever water you're serving, if it's alkaline, if it's above 7, the copper doesn't give off copper molecules fast enough. So some people are still having algae growth problems and things like that. So if your water is a little more on the acidic side, below 6.5, then that copper works great, right? So
and you could achieve that with some apple cider vinegar, right?
Yeah, you could. It's amazing,
crazy how that works out. Dwayne says, does feeding in cups reduce the amount of parasites in your fowl versus feeding on the ground? And I'll say this.
100%.
I have a firm rule that you don't crap where you eat. And that applies on the chicken yard.
No, wait. The other way around, Carrie. The other way around. You don't eat where you crap. Okay. Anyway.
Hey, either way. And, that applies on your chicken yard. And, I tell my kids the same thing. When they have jobs, you don't talk to, you don't have a significant other there either. You don't crap where you eat. But yeah, I think that makes a huge difference in having birds that are susceptible to a lot of worms and other parasites is feeding them on the ground. Because if you throw their feed somewhere where they pooped, it's going to get on the feed, and then they eat it and ingest it. It's going in their body.
This is going to manage parasites, coccidiosis, necrotic enteritis, a lot of soil-borne diseases. It's like it's just okay. There are things that chickens are supposed to eat from the ground. Okay, I get it. Right? They're supposed to eat grass. They're supposed to eat bugs. They're supposed to eat mice. They're supposed to eat salamanders. I get it, but green ain't it, right? Not after it's been processed.
And let's see, I see a comment right here from Old Man Billy, and he's addressing you, Jeff, specifically. Yep, Old Man Billy, if nature don't make it, don't take it.
Don't take it. And
a lot of people, they're gonna penicillin, ivermectin, all this stuff. I'm not a huge fan of that. If you've got a 5-time winner that's worth $2,000 and he's sick and you want to save him, okay, that would be an extenuating circumstance. But if you've got a stag or a young cockbird that, year and a half, 2 years old, and you got him on a tie cord in a clean area, you're feeding him in a cup and you're giving him fresh water every day or so, and that bird gets sick, you know what? It is what it is. We get a lot of questions about colon, and we're going to talk about that quite a bit on our next show, because one of the farm tours that I did was with people that are well known all throughout the world and what they look for in their program. I learned a whole lot yesterday on that. But if you got a bird that can't stomach that's not hybrid vigor. You don't want that in your breeding program. That's not game. You want your birds to be game, and you want them to have hybrid vigor, and you want them to be healthy and happy birds and birds that are ready to go to a show. You don't need weak birds.
Yeah, but
That's just me.
Your qualifier is they're in a good environment, right? They're on
Right.
clean grass, they're in a clean pen, they're not living in mud and muck, and they're being fed in a cup, they're drinking from a cup, right? They have the proper environment. And in that case, if you've got a sick bird in a good, clean environment, then you need to get rid of that bird, right?
Mm-hmm. And right here, Michael Dwayne says the advantage of not having too many chickens, you can move the cage to grass at least once a week. You know,
Yep.
if y'all look at this yard behind me, there's empty spots, and this guy, young guy, and I'm just listening, and what he does is every week he moves some of his, like he does it in sections. He said he'll move the birds. He picks the birds up, he'll handle them, and he'll move the cord from one leg to the other. And he when I was there yesterday, it started right week because they were all on the right leg like clockwork. And he said he does that so both legs get freedom and both legs get exercise. So, you know, you don't have too many. You can move them around. And if y'all also notice in this picture, this grass, like it's not beat down, it's not wore down. So those chickens, they are eating grass and bugs and the food that he put down. So I was really impressed with what that young man had going on.
That old boy had a good mentor. He had some good teachers, right? I don't know who he was learning from, but he was learning from somebody who knew something. So
yeah. Let's see. I got a fire barrel in my chicken yard for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when it comes time to, if you don't know what's been in your coals and you're not going to put it in a crock pot, there you go. Let's see.
Yep.
The only treatment for a sick bird on my yard is colon. There you go.
Yep.
Alan says feed on the ground is a big cause of several diseases, and mold has a greater chance of developing, and we all know what mold does to your flock. Yeah, to give you a yard full of coals.
Yeah.
How are we doing? I don't have grass like that. I rotate and feed fresh greens. Now, look, I'm going to tell you this. This dude's yard, immaculate. If you don't have grass like that, you know, you can start with rotating your birds around and planting a cover crop. You know, there's those out there, fast growing grass. What do you suggest for that, Jeff? You know all about that.
Well, you know, some of these guys in the hotter climates, or, you know, like you get down into New Mexico, Arizona, Southern California, you know, you're just not going to grow grass year round, right? So, you know, that's where, you know, liming the yard, liming under the birds 3-4 times a year, you know, liming heavy, and try and move them as often as you can, right? It's going to be a plus. But I talk to a lot of guys that have more birds than they have enough ground for, right? They are way too many birds. So they don't have an option for really moving them around, you know, and getting them on clean ground. So you've got to come up with another plan, you know, and putting the feed lime down, you know, what they use for making feed, putting that down on a regular basis is about, you know, rough it up, lime it, rough it, work it in, lime it again, and, you know, try and put some fresh sand or bedding down as often as you can. That's the best you're going to do. Because a bunch of the guys in California, you know, they just bed with sand because they're never going to have enough grass. They have grass for a few months out of the year, maybe 4, 5. The rest of the time it's dead and it's dry, right? So
yep.
They're doing the best they can, but, you know.
All right. Well, that wraps it up tonight. We're at 8:00, guys. I appreciate every single one of y'all. I appreciate all the questions. Keep the questions coming. We'll add them to the list and we'll get them on here next time. Till next week. See y'all later.
See you.